All right. And we're recording. Thanks for joining me today, Brian. I appreciate it. I'm with Brian Curtis from Dominion Tech up in the Great White North of Vermont. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So just a little background for our audit user, family that are watching this. Brian is probably one of our longest clients, longest. You were here in the beginning. I think you were probably here before we were even charging money for this. Like, you've been a subscriber, you're a paying subscriber, but you probably joined when Frank was still walking around the hallways of Robin Robbins with a printed report and an Excel spreadsheet in his hand.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I remember the Excel spreadsheets, and I remember, convincing him or helping convince him that he needed to take the, seemingly simple thing and turn it into a platform. And it's been great to see, and it's been great for us to use over these last 3+ years. I think
Yeah,
is what we figured it out
sure.
to help us grow.
Yeah, I think you joined in, I think they launched it in the timestamp on your account, and this probably predates. So we moved people from the system they were on into Infusion when I came into the company as a partner, and that was August of 2016. So that's when you hit that database. I don't know when you hit the original database.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was probably well before that, and just for a history lesson here, for those who don't know, Frank DiBenedetto is the founder of audIT, who runs Two River Technology Group in New Jersey. And Frank and you are in a peer group in the Robin Robbins community.
Hmm.
And Frank was basically built audIT just to use for himself. He never planned on creating audIT as a platform. And now with hundreds of users, this blows his mind, because he never planned for audIT to be a thing that would be sold to MSPs. And you were that first bunch of people. If it wasn't for you, audIT wouldn't be the platform, because he would just have kept using it for his own uses.
Well, I don't think I deserve any credit at all, but if I can get some, I'll take some.
So let's talk about you. Let's talk about your company. You run a company called Dominion Tech in Vermont,
Yep.
and tell us about your company, how long you've been around, and where it all
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. So we was founded. I was a founder 2001. Started like most MSPs. Started just doing some consulting on the side. So here we are. I guess 18, almost 19 years later. We're an 18-person MSP. We purely focus on managed services revenue. So we've evolved to not taking projects and stuff from non-managed customers. We highly value and focus on consultative approach or a proactive preventative services approach. So we staff to prevent problems versus creating them. It's kind of our go-to market strategy.
Right. And where are you? And you don't have to give specifics, but can you share where you are in, and you told us how many employees you have, but where are you in revenue size? And you can give me a range if you're not comfortable giving exact amounts.
Yeah, so we're currently at a run rate of 4 million a year. We've been experiencing some great growth the last several years. So we'll clock past 3.5 this year, and hope to blow past that in next year.
Wow. And you told me a little bit about where your growth was since coming on with audIT. Can you share that again?
Yeah, so we were just looking at that, and it's pretty mind blowing. I hadn't really looked at it before, but since using audIT, we've grown year over year 30% every year. Looks like to
Wow,
be our average growth.
that's great.
A little higher on the managed services front as we cycled out some of the projects and stuff like that. So total growth about 30%. It looks like managed service revenue we're growing about 40 to 45% a year, to replace some of that old project revenue we used to do.
Wow. And how do you use audIT? Do you use it just for sales presentations? Do you use it for business reviews?
So we use audIT just about anywhere we can. So we use it in the sales process. We do a free assessment using that tool. I have an outside salesperson who's a rock star, and he goes out and visits our prospects, and he'll do 90% of that report and deliver that to prospects. And then we continue that audit theme to our first, we call them virtual CIO meetings, but QBRs for most of the world. And we track our scores in audit for our customers. And so my VCIOs, we have 2 VCIOs on staff, and they manage a report for every one of our managed customers moving forward. So it helps us frame the conversation and the sales process, and then we continue that through on the VCIO side or QBR side.
Awesome. Love to hear. I love to hear that folks are using it for both. I think if we have MSPs who use for all different things. We have some who just use it for QBRs, some who just use it for sales presentations. But I think the most folks who are generating the most revenue from audit are using it for both. So love that.
I'll say just the new release has really allowed us to use that in a much more powerful way. Now we can customize those reports. We can pick our summary statements. We can add in our infographics. It's really made it a lot easier for us, and really super focused on. So, it's really important to us that we're not like every MSP out there. Mm-hmm. And so to have the ability to customize and deliver a report that is unique to us, what we call the Dominion Tech way, has been pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, I was just talking to another MSP today about that same thing is audit has always really allowed you to have your own footprint because you're deciding what's red, yellow, green. You know what I mean? You're not relying on a system to make it's red. You're deciding based on your knowledge of them, and then you're putting in a score like a weight. You're also putting in your own summary statement, and now you're able to add your own audit items, so it makes it even more flexible.
Yeah, I think our industry in particular, as of recent years, has been a lot of monkey see, monkey do, and it's important for any MSP to get out there and create something new, create some value that your neighbor's not creating, and audit facilitates that for us. And it's obviously not the only thing, but it allows us to be who we are at the same time having a structure which is equally as important, so that customers get predictable results and expectations.
Right. And I have to thank you one in person here. I probably thanked you in person before, but I got to thank you again in front of everybody. We're in a couple forums together, and just about any time somebody asks a question about running a presentation, doing technical assessments or presentations, I see you're the first one to post and tell them to go use audit. So I always appreciate that.
Yeah, from the first time I saw Frank with his spreadsheets, it was like, duh, that's stupid easy, but we don't do it. We make it much more complicated than that. I used to come in with a big, massive, I don't have any to show you because I don't use them anymore, rapid fire tools assessment and bore the hell out of my customers. And I'd pick up customers that were focused on the nuts and bolts of IT. I wasn't picking up strategy customers. And so now we use rapid fire. It's not a bad product. We use it for some other stuff, audits and stuff like that. But now I can have a conversation that's relevant to my prospects, which are business owners. Mm-hmm. Maybe that, your audience probably cares who our prospects are. So we have a $2,000 a month minimum commitment. So typically our customers are 15 users or larger. We top out around, when we're prospecting, we top out around 125 users. We don't typically prospect much more than that, but lucky enough to have a couple of customers that are bigger than that, just from referrals and stuff. But, we found if they have 15 or more employees, the owner of that company doesn't care if the patches were installed or why the patches weren't installed. He just cares that they were installed. Right. And then he wants to know, how are you helping him grow his business? And so that's, Frank's tool, or the audit tool now, because I think it's more than just Frank, clearly. Sure. Some stuff happened in there that he maybe was just the original visionary on, but you guys have certainly executed a great plan. But to look at that and to be able to use that as a tool to have a strategy conversation with my prospect allows us to close bigger, larger, more strategy-focused customers, which also means more rates and higher rates and MRR, and then projects that follow along for those customers.
Right. So you use both rapid fire and you use audit. Tell me how you use them together.
Yeah. So we will often, if a customer is totally clueless about their environment, we'll come out and bill them for an audit, and we use rapid fire for that. We'll come out and we run a scan. It works pretty well. There's probably lots of tools to do that, but we use rapid fire for various reasons. And then so we'll collect all that data. It brings out a book like this. We bring that with us. We take some of that data and we also build our audit for IT report. We bring both, and I give the customer the choice. I slam the big book on the table or the 9-page document, and I say, I have all the information summarized from this in this one audit for IT report, or we can sit and go through the book and figure out how many users you have that don't have passwords or weak passwords and that kind of stuff. I've never had anyone say, give me the big book.
Right.
They always say, we'll give that to our IT guy. And I say, that's great. Now let's focus on strategy, because that's really why we're here. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to know audit for IT, my sales guy does 90% of those boxes. And we do that on purpose, because if we're too technical or I need an engineer to populate all those boxes, that means that we're selling just like every other IT consultant there is out there. And we're selling speeds and feeds and equipment and Gary Peak would say is Captain Obvious stuff. So if all those boxes are filled with technical stuff, I think you're missing the point of audit.
And what's your close rate? Like, do you track how you're doing?
Yeah, so we track pretty closely deals that we put on our prospective business report. So if we quote a customer, we're closing just about 42% of those over the last several months is our average. So we're pretty proud of that. Now, that being said, we don't put everyone on that prospective business report. They have to fit our market, right? So, or our approach, but yeah, pretty happy to have that.
Yeah, and what's the mix, like referrals compared to lead gen compared, because obviously if you're mostly referrals, right, you're going to have you should have a higher close rate. But
yeah. So looking at our lead sources, about 10% of our leads are referrals. So that's something actually we feel like we could always do better on, and we don't. But 90% of our leads are coming from our marketing engine. So you mentioned earlier, we're in the same peer group with Frank, part of Robin and Robin's Producers Club. We have a full-time marketing manager that's delivering leads. And so about 90% of those are coming, web, wow. Direct mail. We do a lot of direct mail, webinars, events. Yeah.
That's amazing.
COI marketing is important too. Some free advice.
COI marketing. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. So center of influence. So I have full-time outside sales rep. I also do this, but getting in front of other people that are prospecting or selling to your customers and doing joint ventures with them has been super helpful for us. Probably our number one lead source.
Really?
And as we look at it all.
Do you have a couple of examples you can share on a high level?
Yeah, I mean, so
or how that works, how it works, right?
Yeah. So treating people that sell in our industry, so business to business sales are like insurance agents, people selling ISP services, people selling data center services into our market, becoming it's really just about becoming friends with those people, right? And be sharing leads, cooperating with them, sharing information back and forth. Copier dealers are another one. Finding people that don't necessarily compete, or finding good people that maybe compete in some ways, but agreeing that, you go to the dance with the person, or you go home from the dance with the person you went with, right? So we've had a lot of success growing that way.
I want to dissect that a little bit more, because that's really interesting. And I think So let's talk about, because it's basically networking, right? That's covered in the sphere of networking, right? What you're doing
Hmm.
is you're going out and you're finding people to network with, and they're your they're your contact sphere. I'll use some BNI language, and I'm a member of BNI. I'm a big fan of BNI, but sometimes those bigger clients, they, like the ones you're looking for, may not be in your typical BNI group, for example,
Hmm.
right? So I think I know some people, and Chamber of Commerce's, you have to look in the right place for the right partners. So I know some people will say, well, I went to Chamber of Commerce and I'm not finding those right people to network with. I'm just getting small deals or little, people who want break fix. How are you going out and finding those people? Is it through BNI? Is it through Chambers? Or are you actively prospecting those types of folks?
Yeah. So we're a member of BNI. I don't in person participate in BNI, but my outside rep does. And he's pretty active in BNI. So he took a leadership role early. He recognized that he needed to be in front of a lot of people, not just his small group. So
Smart.
he spends time in other groups. He's on a training committee, so as new people come in, and I love him, and he's great, and he calls it, he's building his BNI dream team, right? So he really he finds you know the one or two people that focus on B2B sales that aren't the aromatherapy person or
Mm-hmm.
the lumberjack or something like that probably aren't going to give us too many leads. And then he's made a group within BNI he calls his dream team, and there's 4 or 5 of them. He's got a commercial mortgage lender. He's got commercial real estate agents. He's got uh, insurance brokers, ISPs, right? And then so all these people, we're all running off the same list. We all want the same customers.
Yeah.
And so we can make warm introductions for existing customers, and that works out pretty well.
So first of all, I have to ask, because you mentioned it. Do you actually like? I guess this would be a Vermont thing, but do you actually have a lumberjack in?
Um, yeah, I think they're called like arborists. I think is so
Okay, okay, we got those two. All right.
yeah.
What's the guy dressed like on the Bounty paper towel thing? Like he comes in with a axe on his.
No, that'd be pretty cool. I'll have to find one of those. I'm sure we do.
But okay, so and I'm a big advocate of BNI. I actually been part of BNI for years and years and years, and I still am active. And I'm a director consultant. Like I don't even need business from BNI, but I love it so much. I'm still a part of it. So I believe in the system. And a lot of people will say to me that their right contacts aren't in there, and you just kind of validated that. If you've got the right person in the seat in your company, and this is a bigger segue into a bigger question here. If you've got the right person attending the meeting, looking for the right things and building that, what you call a contact sphere, right, those right people, it works, right? Anything.
Yeah, I think it's about putting yourself in a place where you're going to meet new people on a regular basis and form a relationship. And a lot of times it's giving them something before they've ever even given you anything, right? Giving them a lead with no expectation they're going to give you one back. If you do that enough, it comes back, right? The
Right.
favor gets returned. So BNI is a great place to get in front of other sales reps or business owners that know people. And then I think you have to do more than just go to the weekly BNI meeting.
Right.
You need to form a relationship with those people that can help you or that you can help. And over time that happens. So if you meet them at BNI or a chamber mixer or some other, user group conference that's user group conferences locally. I don't know if you guys have those or other people have those, but that's a good place too, right? You get someone who came out for a beer tasting and to watch some boring presentation, but you get in front of other business owners that you can begin to network with and share leads with.
Interesting. So you did something that probably a lot of our clients, I think, will be interested in. A good segment of our clients will be interested in, which is growing a sales team. You have somebody out. You have said you're an outside salesperson, and you have a lead gen folks who do lead gen. You're not doing all this yourself. So talk about who the different players are in your company and how you kind of put them in the right, put the right people in the right seat, because that's very hard.
Yeah. So So currently we have what we call an outside sales rep. We do a lot of the True Methods process stuff with our OSR. Most people probably recognize that, but so he's focused on taking the leads, meeting new people, and doing what we call first time appointments, converting those. Do they make it to our PBR or not? So dedicated role to that. His commissioned on MRR. His focus is closing MRR. He doesn't really get paid very much unless he closes new monthly recurring revenue. So that's important. And I certainly could have done that, and I used to do that. As the business has grown, I'm more passionate about strategy and direction, so I focus on that. But that being said, just a word of advice for people who are thinking I'm going to hire a sales guy. Sales management is practically a full-time job, whether you have 1 or 10. So just some advice if you're looking at salespeople, like really learn how to be a good sales manager, because just throwing a sales rep in the mix, I don't see too much success. You really have to have weekly meetings with them. You have to coach them. You have to know how to sell yourself a bit, or you might need to find someone else to sales manage. So I have outside sales rep. I serve as a sales manager, and then we also have a marketing manager who's pretty awesome as well. We give her marketing projects, so we do a lot of direct mail that she does soup to nuts with little to no interaction. We do in-person webinars that she manages and controls, and then we also do an annual customer appreciation event, which is truly a customer appreciation event, except for we're going to make sure we have a dozen or so prospects in that room to help us, to help our customers close us some more customers too. If that makes sense.
So you do like a kind of Dominion Tech Con, right? Like
yeah. Last year the theme was a business growth workshop, so there wasn't a whole lot of IT. There was some cybersecurity in there, but we got about 75 of our customers and prospects to come, and we did it at a hotel. They catered the food. It was a half-day event, and we educated our customers, and it was pretty good for us. So we're getting ready to do another one. So it's kind of
that's
top of mind
awesome.
right now.
That's smart. Yeah. And did you have a campaign where, like, for example, you tell your customers bring another business, or did you help them kind of incentivize?
We didn't. That's a good idea. So I might steal that one. But yeah, I mean, so we, Mike, our sales rep, was responsible for kind of getting prospects or his favorite prospects in the room. But we did direct mail for that. We did email campaigns. We did some online advertising for that event. And we got some. It was mostly vendor paid, so we had some traditional IT vendors there, but then we also had some of our customers there that paid us money to be there to have a booth, like a payroll company, a copier company, and such. So it was actually pretty close to free, but then they also marketed to their list that the event was happening too. So that was pretty
Brilliant.
cool.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's such a easy thing to do to generate leads. I mean, you can fill a room. I'm sure anybody can fill a room just talking about cybersecurity these days, let alone a huge customer appreciation thing.
I say easy. My marketing manager is a rock star, and she worked her tail off to make that happen. But
sure.
It was certainly easy for me. I showed up and I really emceed the event and maybe talked for 5 minutes. But it was there's a lot of planning that goes involved, but so far it's been worth it for us.
Right. And let's go back to talking about hiring a salesperson a bit. You said, obviously, you're the sales manager and folks should understand how to manage because you're actively doing that. And I've heard all sorts of things from folks who've tried to hire salespeople in the past and it's failed, right? And it's been a bad experience for the sales rep who doesn't have the support. They're kind of thrown out there to go get stuff, you'll make commissions. And they're freaking out. They're having a miserable time, and the MSP, the whoever owns the MSP and hired them is pissed because it's not working. Mm-hmm. How did you learn about it? Like, where do you recommend folks go to learn about that?
Yeah, I mean, so the same way I learn about anything, screwing it up first. So unfortunately, I burned through a few different salespeople before it kind of clicked, and even now I won't admit I have it perfect. Certainly it's a work in progress and getting better every time, but certainly I feel a little badly for the first couple of people that joined my team as sales reps that maybe didn't have the support they needed to do their jobs. Yeah, unfortunately, it's failure that I can say is the reason how we've
Well,
hit some of the success we have. One thing about this team here is we don't give up, right? So one of our core values, not officially, but we say it all the time, fall forward. If we're going to fall, at least we're going to get a few more inches because we fell forward,
right.
and get back up and keep going. So yeah. So to answer your question, certainly peer groups help me learn from my mistakes. I'm pretty active in two different peer groups, and I'm always willing to understand that I don't know everything,
Right.
and running $1 million MSP is totally different than running a $4 million MSP. And I expect when we're a $10 million MSP, it'll be different than it is today. And just have to consume the information and leverage, tools and partners like we do with audIT.
Cool. And I'll ask you one more sales question, sales manager question, because I can hear the questions that are coming at me from folks who've asked me these questions. Is how long do you give your salesperson to start generating? Because they can't just go out there. There's different kinds of sales development, right? There's folks who are good outside sales reps. There's folks who are good inside sales reps. There's folks who are good on the phone. They're not necessarily good in person. So how do you kind of get them rocking and rolling? And it sounds like the kind of person you're looking for is a person who has that networking mind, who's going to get out there and build relationships. How long did you?
So that's a good question. So I think first, what I think sometimes people lump that into, there's two different kinds of sales in the MSP space. There's the kind where you're price competitive, and then there's the kind where you're 30, maybe 50% more than your competitor. So we're in the camp where we're typically 30 to 50% more than our competitor. So I'm going to measure that salesperson a little differently than I would someone who is, selling something that's about the same price, or, kind of treating it like a commodity. So I think there's a difference.
Absolutely.
So I don't know the answer to this, because the first two salespeople I kept way too long for not closing. Now, in all transparency, some of that was my fault, some of that was theirs. But if I were to pick a number today, I would say it's probably 6 months. So I know my sales guys have been with me, I guess, going on 3 years shortly. I didn't ask him to sell anything for the first 6 months. I really wanted him to learn what we did. He was a little pig-headed. He's going to watch this and laugh, but he wanted to sell something right away. He wanted to blow my socks off. But the truth is, it takes some time, unless they've already been selling in this industry and they've learned the techniques to sell someone on value versus on price. It takes some time to do that. And that's that sales management piece. I had to really commit 6 months of my life to teaching him how I presented, teaching him why we were better than our competition, or why our customers get better end results. And if he's got a mortgage payment to make, that's really tough. So I've always suggested, give him a good salary for this first 6 months, and then trim it down. So 6 months, hey, you're going to make X number a year. That's your goal. All right, for the 6 months, you're guaranteed that, as long as you meet your training guidelines, right? So one piece of advice: if they don't do the training early, that's a sign they got to go.
Right.
So if they're not committed to that process early in the game, don't keep them around. And then, after 6 months, maybe take, 20% off of that and say, okay, you got to pay some of your own way. And then eventually you get to a smaller base with a good commission.
All right. That's really, really, really good advice. Cool. So, and obviously audit's a big part of that process for you. It's part of your sales process. Talk a little bit about that, about how and just to kind of wrap things up, going back to how you do your sales presentations and your QBR presentations once you have those folks in the pipeline.
Yeah. So, our best to turn that lead into a first-time appointment. The first time appointment is anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. It's really about rapport building and capturing the prospect into believing that if we come back with that audit report, we're going to give them something of value. So we spend focus to really just, it's never focused on, the first meeting is not focused on one-time sale. I hear people do that and I'm amazed. That's never been our approach. You know, the first meeting is about getting a second meeting, and to do the second meeting right, we need to get into pain. And then we need to learn about your environment a bit so that we can complete the boxes in the audit. And then we come back for the second time appointment. I should point out that's a great way for us to control the next step. So now the customer knows we're coming back with something of value. So they're less likely to cancel that meeting or blow us off. So we're coming back with that audit, and then we're coming back with strategy for them. And then that's typically where we get them, you know, they're kind of their jaws drop. My score is a what? Or how can I make this better? Why do I have so much red? And all those are great signs that we've tipped the scale to our favor. And then we'll back up even a little bit at that point and go back into pain. Because sometimes, I don't know if other people experience this, when they go on that first time appointment, people are a little reserved with the problems they have with their IT. But once you can convince them that you're there to help them with the long-term play, they'll open back up. So to come back, re-expose some of that pain, help them understand that what they're doing now isn't going to continue. And likely a new version of what they're doing now won't work either. So they need to do something totally different. And which, you know, we hope is our approach. And then from that audit report, we'll move into our proposal, which sometimes it is a third appointment, depending on the time. But yeah,
right.
So we present that, we present the offering as part of the audit proposal or the audit report, and then we give them some pricing and see where we go from there.
And when you say proposals, so are you printing the audit report as just a baseline for them and showing them where they are, or are you showing them the baseline, then the proposed audit? Because sometimes people use proposal interchangeably for quote, right? Like they'll do the proposal as the audit.
Yeah.
And then the quote it used to be the proposal, but now it's you know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, I probably said that wrong too. So we use the baseline report and audit. We fill that out. That's kind of where they are today. And then we do the what it would be like if they were a customer of ours. And what I love about that is most of the time, all the red boxes under infrastructure and security stick around, right? So it's a great way to bridge the conversation to say, so all you're doing is hiring a new MSP, and we can certainly, your score will go up, but all we're going to do is manage the same problems you have, maybe a little better. To keep the focus back on, they also need to, you know, get off of Windows 7, or they off of Server 2008, or whatever the, you know, some of the things we point out, you know, policy and stuff like that we add to the report.
Do you ever get any pushback from the client when you come in with the audit, right? You do your technical assessment, you gather the data, then you come back for a second appointment and you present, here's what we found, put the audit report in front of them. And did anybody ever go to you, well, why is it red? Or you know what I mean? Like that's, and if you do, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily. So we get a lot of, like, let's focus on the red boxes, right? So I think that's the beauty of audit, is people will focus on the problem areas. One of the things I teach our sales rep and our VCIOs is don't fill it up with red boxes. So there's got to be something good that's happening on that network, and you need some green on there. Otherwise, the red won't have as much impact. And it's truth, right? So we don't want to overwhelm them with 15 things they have to do out of a 27-point report. We want to say, hey, here are the 4 or 5 things that we see as a problem. Let's focus on these 3, and then next quarter we'll come back and we'll capture the others. And then there's always something, you know, the world changes, so there's always something new. So I digress a little bit. So then, so do they push back on the red boxes? They'll certainly ask questions, and I think that's important, right? That's where we get to show our strategy versus someone else's. I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day. So we don't present audit as something we created. So we present audit as an industry tool that we leverage to have a conversation. And so what that means then is now when there's a red box, it's not me that made the red box. It's the tool that made the red box. And can you argue with the industry? You can't. You can argue with me, but if we're determining or portraying the results as the industry saying, hey, you should have warranties on your servers, I don't get as much pushback individually. So
right, that makes all the sense in the world. That's a great way to frame it. I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, on that note, I'm gonna kind of wrap up here. This has been great talking to you about this stuff. I appreciate you sharing all of your experience and knowledge, and thank you again for all you do. I know you are a big advocate of audit, and we really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, and just to your listeners, I'm happy to have you hand out my email address, or I'm happy to answer questions offline. I can maybe divulge a little more information than I do publicly. I'm an open book. If most people can't tell, I'm pretty open, but I'd be happy to have very direct one-on-one conversations with people if they have questions.
Great, thank you so much, Brian, and thanks for listening, everybody who's listened, and have a great day, all.